am Nongcebo Vukile Mackenzie, and this is the podcast, Sawubona. Every fortnight, a guest joins us for a conversation or to share a story. It's a pleasure to share these with you and to have you with us. Welcome, Ngiyakwamukela, to another episode of Nongcebo Mackenzie, the podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we're talking all things ports. From the Transnet National Ports Authority, we are joined by Nkululeko Molefe. He's the Corporate Affairs Manager. And we're going to be talking about the port strategy. We're going to be talking more specifically about your CSI projects. Nkululeko, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Yes.
So, as far as we know as the general public, the Transnet National Ports Authority is the landlord of South Africa's ports. So, just educate us about TNPA.
All right. So TNPA is an operating division of Transnet.
Okay.
Right. It is mainly focusing on managing the 8 commercial ports that we have in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And really its core function around managing the port, one, it is to plan, develop and maintain the port infrastructure. And we do that in quite a number of programs. And obviously, the intention is to create a space that is safe, that is conducive enough for business to thrive within our country. And as we know, I'm a port of entry for the country.
Yes.
Which means that is where the export and the import are happening. So we need to make sure that that process, that space, it is as smooth as possible. Right, so we really play a significant role in terms of the country's economy, in terms of GDP. As you know, there are a lot of commodities that we don't have as a country, but other countries have, and they're quite heavy for them to be flown on air, so they need to come on vessels. There are commodities that we have as a country that other countries don't have. So in that way, to move them around means that we are creating money or the economy for the country.
So in essence, umnotho nuphethe ngezandla kuma-ports. The port of Richards Bay.
Sure.
Obviously, ports are located where they are as strategic points of entry and exit, as you're saying. But let's talk now about the port of Richards Bay, which is where you are based.
Sure.
Let's talk about that specifically.
This is the port that was officially opened in 1976. It has a capacity of 3,447 in terms of land and water. So it's actually quite one of the biggest ports, and it's a naturally deep sea port, which makes things much easier in terms of the size of the vessels that we handle in Richards Bay. It's one of the ports that falls amongst what we call the eastern ports. So what we've done, we've segmented the ports across the country. We've got the eastern region, which comprises of the Port of Durban and Richards Bay. We've got the central region, which comprises of the Port of PE, East London and Mossel Bay. And then we've got the western region, which is the Port of Cape Town, Cape of Mossel Bay, sorry. So we differ in terms of the commodities that we handle. Mm-hmm. And when I come close to the Port of Richards Bay, mainly it's a bulk port, mm-hmm. right, which talks to heavy material. That is your coal, your magnetite, your ferrochrome.
All minerals, basically.
All minerals, basically. Yes. So initially the port was developed to export, I think, 10 million tons of coal, which means that the first infrastructure that was constructed was the two berths at the Richards Bay Coal Terminal, right? And we really take pride of ourselves of hosting, I think it's the second biggest coal terminal in the whole world, right? That is located at South Dunes. And after that, through diversification, obviously responding to the business needs, mm-hmm. we ended up hosting other commodities, your chrome and a lot that I've just mentioned previously. So the port itself, it has 3 precincts. We've got the South Dunes, as I've indicated, mm-hmm. and there are about 3 players there right now. We've got the Richards Bay Coal Terminal. We've got Bidvest Terminal, who are into liquids and gas. We've also got, we previously had engine, but we have now signed a new contract with FFS. They are into making sure that our vessels that come through are fueled up. We call it the bunker services. And then the other side of the port, we call it the Bayview precinct, right? It has one player at the current moment. It has Transnet Port Terminals, who are managing the imports and exports in that regard. And then the third one is what we call the Newark precinct. Mainly that is where we host our maritime craft, the tugs, as well as the ship repair. Now, as I indicated that the role of TNPA is to manage, maintain, design and implement import infrastructure, we now need to make sure that all these terminals, the infrastructure is up to standard. We have to make sure that it's maintained, it's in a good condition. And then secondly, what we do, we play what we call an authoritative role. That's why we're called Transnet National Ports Authority. So we play an oversight role. We need to make sure that whoever that is doing business in the port, they do it in a safe manner, environmentally sound manner. We make sure that they operate in a manner that responds to the investment that we've invested. So if we pay to build an infrastructure like a quay side, the person that uses that key need to make sure that they use it to its maximum capability. So we play that role. And then thirdly, we also assist in terms of navigation, which speaks to the bringing of the vessels. So we've got our own tug masters that we've trained. We've got our own pilots that we've trained that assist in terms of bringing the vessels and docking them or parking them along our quays. And we do that for safety purposes, really. So what would happen is that the vessel would park outside. They will then tell us, listen, this is who we are, how many people that are on board, and why are we here? What commodities are we bringing? And then we then determine, okay, if you're bringing that commodity, then you need to go to that area. So we plan everything. So mainly that in a bigger scheme, that is the role of TNPA as well as the Port of Richards Bay.
So you've described the port operations and you've described the role of TNPA. And what's emanating very clearly is the significance of the Port of Richards Bay. If you consider the strategic placement along the N2 route, easy access into the inland areas, you've described also in terms of capacity. It's the biggest port in the country. It handles 40% of the tonnage in terms of what it's capacitated to handle, which then means that from an economic point of view, not just the province's economy, but the country's economy, and in fact the SADC region, you play quite a significant role.
Yeah, most definitely. Let me start closer to home, which is in Richards Bay. Now, before 1976, really, Richards Bay was just a fishing town. And when the port was then established, it grew. You know, obviously other people saw opportunities.
Yes.
Hence, you see all the industries that you see now in Richards Bay. Really, Richards Bay is classified as an industrial town.
Okay.
And that alone, which means that in terms of employment opportunities, it is like it's an economic hub, if I may say so, really. So if you look at all the industries that are there, the significant role that they play in terms of GDP, it speaks to the port, actually. So
the entire northern corridor, actually.
That entire northern corridor, right? So in the city of Mhlathuze, we play a significant role in terms of employment, business opportunities. In the King Edward district, the King Edward district hosts a few mines as well. And if you fly over that district, you also pick up that it's mainly green, which means kukuchaliwa gumtree and stuff. And although the gumtree bayasetshenzwa bagcine bephuma as what we call woodchips that get exported for whatever reasons that may be. And if you go beyond that, the province of the KZN, you'll remember that the type of commodities that we handle, your coal, your magnetite, your chrome, they mainly don't come from KZN. They come from go Mpumalanga, go Northwest, go Gauteng. So that is where all our role in terms of GDP or the economy of the country, that is where we play, really. If you look into those provinces, they don't have a sea. But the GDP there, because of the mines that are there, the socio-economic impact of those mines speaks to the presence of the port. So if the port is not functioning, if there's no port of Richards Bay, it means that there's nothing out there.
In that context, considering all that you have educated us about in terms of the port, the significance of the port to the economy of the province, of the SADC region, of the country, that places quite a heavy weight on the port in terms of, one, the employment profile of Richards Bay, again, the Northern Corridor, let me just put it that way. And again, changing the skills profile. Because the presence of any industry, if a place of an area was previously agricultural and an industry comes up, it then changes that from more of an agricultural skills profile to more now a technical skills profile. So obviously with the coming on board of various other industries or other role players in the industry, that has changed quite a bit what the area now looks like from an aesthetics point of view, but also from a skills profile point of view, which then influences how you strategically now plan your initiatives from skills development to CSI and all that comes with that. So let's talk about your CSI initiatives. Let's talk about how you approach those as the Port of Richards Bay.
You're quite true. Now, if you look at the port operations, it involves a lot of engineering, machine moving, and big assets like tugs as well as helicopters, right? Specifically in the Port of Richards Bay. Now, I think if I ngingenza nje umzekeliso, in the early 2000s, our government picked up this is an untransformed field, previously occupied by other races, and not only races, by the way, but even in terms of being highly man-dominated.
So the demographics weren't balanced. They didn't reflect the demographics of the country, basically.
They were not balanced at all. So they had to go on a robust transformation journey on bringing new faces to the space. And Richards Bay was fortunate enough to have a school like Itai that offered maritime skills, or the type of maritime that we want, which means apart from ukuba uthisha endaweni nokuba umuntu ophethe indaba zabantu HR nobani, we then needed ama-tug masters, we then needed ama-pilots, and that is how things changed. So through that school, we're then able to train and get ama-tug masters.
When you say through that school, you partnered with the school?
We partnered through the school in the form of creating space for them to come and train from time to time.
Okay.
So other than these learners having a theoretical approach, but they had also to go through something that is, look and feel and actually touch. When you talk about a tug, they too then come and experience a tug, come and experience a working port, so that must we understand that because must be my exam. With conference, so
but it also creates a throughput and creates sort of like a value chain.
Exactly, that's exactly where we're heading. So we're looking ahead of time. Ahead of time. And I'm really proud to say, right now, we see the fruit of that. Almost all our employees are from, Richards Bay in terms of tags, pilots, now some using helicopters, ngikhula nje mina ngangazi ukuthi khona umsebenzi wokuhamba ngehelicopter or engineer we-helicopter or ngifly helicopter sifuthi nethina sazothi khona izinto zoku accounting so iyashintsha kanjalo-ke. So,
but just to come in there, what's nice about that is you say a lot of your teams now consist of people from Richards Bay, which is quite nice because we hear it quite often. Ukuthi ayizama ukuthi ibhekwe lento inkampani la ezinze khona zibheke lento ukuthi abantu bafuduke baye kwezinye indawo beyofuna amathuba omsebenzi. And I mean with the creation of industrial development zones and trying to capture sectors of the economy in certain spaces. And I think that's going some distance. But that's actually quite nice to hear that you're able to... Abantu besekhaya ngathi hayi wahamba nomsebenzi useyofuna ke manje obutfani wahamba amasolokohlo wangaphinde wabuye. So it also creates that strong sense of community, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that is true. Uzokhumbula nje sakhula kudala nje wenze i-example right ukuthi ubukwazi yothiwa ubaba la ekhaya uyahamba ngomsombuluko uzobuye ngo-Friday or mhlawumbe after a month or years.
Maybe 3 times a year.
And that has also an impact in terms of upbringing of the family structures.
Social fiber.
Exactly. So really having these colleagues, when it makes things much easier. So unfortunately though, I think after some time, the person who had that interest and that drive in terms of the maritime left the school. And I also think at some point, I think they couldn't probably sustain in terms of imali yakhe because it's a very specialized industry. At that time, you couldn't get a teacher who was maritime, and you needed someone that has experience as well. So Mr. Leroux left the school, and it eventually appealed. So after some time, we picked up to Taibo. We're now having a problem. Again, the maritime sector. So we then aligned our CSI programs towards that. Now, as you know,
to your strategic skills need, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're responding to our strategic needs, right? So we then, in fact, as you know, you've got your strategic CSI, you've got your philanthropic CSI. Your strategic one is the one that responds to your operational needs, right? And to make an example there, we then focused on schools to say, how can we get into the education space and partner with the Department of Education, expose the learners at a very early stage in terms of the opportunities that we have in the port system. We then looked into how can we support schools. Let's identify certain schools and adopt them, right? Sihlale now, silungise infrastructure, silungise superstructure, support in terms of maths and science, because obviously uzukwazi ukungena lapha udinga ifundo ze maths and science, pure maths and science. So we focused on that adoption of schools. We gave it a period of about 5 years, because we picked up, we would say. You cannot really make an impact umusha touch and go ufika usponsorishe ngamadesk uhambe yabo fanele ukuthi ubathethe the whole journey.
So you're taking a child from grade 8 to grade 12.
Exactly.
And when you do your impact evaluation on that,
I think we've done quite well, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. As you know, in terms of the education, in terms of infrastructure and stuff, there's quite a number of things that still need to be addressed, right? So our strategy was to say, let's create a space that is conducive enough for a learner to thrive and learn, some exposure to the maritime careers by bringing them to the port through take a girl child, through any opportunity that we get. And we've seen the fruits of that. We've got students that went through DUT, that went through Simonstown, and now they are working at TNPA. And that is the type of evaluation was satisfied ngayo, not to spend emalini, not to media coverage benjani, but umuntu ophilayo nje umbona ukuthi hawu nangu uhaba master manje nangu tag master udlulile zami izandla. I had an impact on that. So yeah. And then when it comes to philanthropic CSI, obviously we cannot ignore the other social issues of our country, of our communities. So from time to time we do get a request, whether from a crash, or any other request that we get. So we also participate in those.
Do you focus primarily in the areas in the King Cetshwayo district? We
focus mainly around the King Cetshwayo district. But as I indicated, that in this province, we do have 2 ports. So for the Port of Richards Bay, we're mainly focusing from Uthugela, we are Phezulu province, then Richards Bay responds to all those. And then from Uthugela, Wehla Kanjalo, you've got the other Port of Durban that focuses in that area.
I like that you even make mention of a crash, because lo mntwana ofunda kuleyo crash uzohamba yofunda lo grade 8 hamba zoba pilot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I really made mention of that because engathi kunento kuzulu kuthiwa sigotshwa sencane mangaphosisi mawuthi ngibeke kahle isemanzi yes which means fanele ukuthi umuntu align export at a very young age. Yes, it might not make sense ngaleso sikhathi, but if you create a space for them,
yes,
it's right for them to learn. Because one, before you when you get to maths, you first need to understand that maths is a language. And a lot of people struggle with maths, because they don't understand what maths is a language. Abanye, they're even scared of maths because they're told it's maths is cool. So when we create a space from the beginning that says maths is a language, we give you small books, we build infrastructure for the child ukuthi ihlale ifunde ku spaces right, yenza umqondo ukuthi ibe right kwazi ukabsorba kahle. But the time efika ku primary use right, use maturity kancane. So ke uma befika nase primary, we also engage with primaries. What we do, we host them primary schools at the port and present to them the career opportunities at the primary level and take them through. Bayibona umkhumbi, bayibona ithagi balithinte, and that it breeds that inquisitiveness nje ukuthi how kwenziwani lapha uyabona into leyo. And again ispace we maritime siyifuna ne personality ethile. Remember sisebenza emanzini, I might be good in maths and science, I might be brilliant, but uthola ukuthi ngiyabasaba amanzi. So kufanele ngikufake manje usheshe wazi ukuthi no, i-office lakho uzobe semanzini, i-office lakho uzobe uxova udaka as an engineer, uzobe ulungisa ugesi and so forth. Ngoba umunye umuntu uthola ukuthi they're brilliant in maths and science, but umuntu sakayogqoka amabhuzu thothi yena kahle kahle umuntu uthanda ukuhlala e-office ufake inzipho abemuhle and they will thrive because that's the space yabo lonto leyo. So yeah, we do that for primaries, and then for high schools again we also host our high schools. We also do our career days where we go out to communities and share the career opportunities and share my bursaries, during the bursary season. Transnet say, guys,
which is
the opportunity. In fact, currently, right now, in the month of August.
So August is your.
August is really our month.
So that's when you announce what bursaries and invite applications.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
But obviously, as indicated, as an organization, we look within our operations. It's okay, here are the needs right now. Then we offer those bursaries to the prospects. So,
and you usually open that window for how long?
It depends. Probably sometimes it will be a month or two. So what we do, we really go on a program of really showcasing and sharing that information. We've got our strategic partners, our cities, port cities that are within us. We share with them to say, what channels do you have? Ukuthi nikwazi ukuthi nifike laphana kuyikole esiphansi koNtambanana kusikole esile koManguzi, bona bayazi banama channels as ama circuits and stuff. Siyasebenzisa futhi ezokuxhumana, social media, radio, TV,
podcasts.
We are really saying that there are a lot of opportunities akhona. Siyafisa ukuthi ingane, especially lezi zakithi bantu abanyama ebezingenawo amathuba okuzenza lezi zinto, uthi nazi lezi zinto zikhona ake sifike zizosebenza. And in that way really they would play a significant role in terms of the economy of the country.
So as corporate affairs manager at the Port of Richards Bay, what has been, from a CSI intervention point of view, what has been your proudest moment?
I must say that in terms of exposing these learners and transforming them, to me really is more than work. To transform and expose these learners to opportunities that we were not privy of. We didn't know about them. For me, it really touches my heart, and it keeps me awake at night. Really, when ngizo drive ngihambe koNtambanana ubone ukuthi lo mntwana lo mephuma la iyodwa into etshelwa yona ukuthi umuqeda standard 10 uyosebenza ngoba akukho ukudla ekhaya.
Yes.
Umntwana wentombazana ubone ukuthi hayibo ngabe upilot wethu lo, kodwa ufanele atshele ukuthi mephuma esikoleni fanele ahambe yokha amanzi. So uma ngi-engage ney'ngane, I always try and make sure that I leave a mark to them and inspire them. But listen, life is more than what you see. It's more than inkomo. It's more than ukulusa inkomo uyodlala. It's more than uyokha amanzi. You can't be out there. I mean, in Richards Bay, I'm proud to say most of our strategic portfolios are being led by women, from harbour master perspective, from deputy harbour master perspective, from a marine operations manager perspective, and there's so much. Now, besides kwizinto zomarine, ukhona ezinye izinto nami engithole sengiyipha ukuthi how khona izinto zo enterprise risk, development management. I mean, every business in a risk, and if you don't manage those risks, you are bound to become, find yourself into trouble. So there is so many opportunities within this space, and we really encourage abantu abayihluphe mana basondela abantu kule nto bazoyicheck ukuthi injani. I'm sure ukuthi they will gain a lot from it.
Nkululeko, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for hosting me today, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the podcast. Remember, you can like the episode and share the podcast link, as well as listen to more episodes on the channel. Subscribe to the channel for more. Siyabonga. Thank you for listening.